in the crowd tonight who will be playing a special performance for us this evening. Anthony Smetona. Everybody, if you give him a warm round of applause, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Now, you're welcome, Anthony. I've known you for...
I didn't know we was talking about it for a while.
I've known you for years, and let me mention this. It's very noteworthy that your grandfather was the president of Lithuania for several decades. And can you share with us a story of what it's like being the son of the president of a country?
Well, my grandfather was not really an unimportant person just by virtue of the fact that he was from a small country. He was actually a great man from a small country. Now, of course, when you come to the United States, you have everybody equal. So I don't get any break in RTA because my grandfather was president of Lithuania. But more in Europe than here, there have been a lot of breaks that I've gotten because I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. People would say, well, you know, I used to work with your grandfather, I knew him, he was a great guy. And once after a concert by Arthur Rubinstein, perhaps the greatest pianist in the 20th century, he told me a long story about how my grandfather came to his concert when he played in Lithuania, and he said, you know, just whenever you want to come over to my house, drop in. And there were many things like that. When I first got married, for example, I really got carried away with buying duty-free stuff in the Virgin Islands, because at that time they were kind of new, nobody went there. And it was true that you could buy diamonds, whiskey, jewelry at about, you know, 1/3 the price. So I loaded up a shopping bag, and then of course, you know, there wasn't enough money, so I started writing a check. And the shopkeeper said, what is this, a check? Drawn in New York? And then he saw the last name, and he said, okay. So, I mean, you know, those are a few things. And then a few things in my performance career worked the same way. And somebody said, like, well, I mean, who cares who his grandfather was? If he were president himself, then we might want to hear about it. But somebody else said, you know, there are a lot more piano players than there are president grandsons. So it was a help. Now, of course, now it's much later. You know, I'm kind of a grandfather myself, so now it's sort of fallen by the wayside. But in the beginning, I met a lot of people, and I was able to do a lot of things which otherwise I probably would not have been able to do.
And you traveled the world for many years playing as a classically trained concert pianist.
That's right.
And so would that sum up your style of play?
Well, I like all kinds of music. I think there are only two kinds of music, good and bad. But I think that everyone should do what they do well, and I was trained to be a concert pianist and play classical music. So I think that my strength is in the big romantic pieces of the late 19th century, Chopin, Liszt, Brahms, Tchaikovsky, you know, and that is my favorite. But students come in, I tell them I'll teach them whatever they want to play. Because this business of, say, well, do you teach classical or popular? If you can't read music and you can't count and your fingers don't move, well, I mean, there's no question what you're going to play, classical or popular. I'll teach you how to find the right notes, how to read music a little bit, and then you can play anything you want.
So, as long as they play it well. There's two kinds of music, good and bad.
Oh yeah, right, sure. So sometimes my students will come in with popular songs, and you know, I say, well, I don't want you to think that because this is a popular song, you don't have to play the right notes at the right time. You know? So I'll teach them that, and that's fine, no problem.
The piece that you're playing tonight, which is Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, as it's become known as, can you tell us some background on that piece? Be it the connection that you have to it personally, why you chose this piece to play tonight, or just general background on the piece itself?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about the piece itself. This is probably one of the most recognizable classical pieces there is. Everybody knows the theme when they hear it. And Appalachian Moonlight was not by Beethoven. There was a famous critic that wrote a review the first time the piece was played, and he said it reminded him of Moonlight on Lake Geneva. So it's got stuck with that name, and it's known as the Moonlight Sonata. It's a very beautiful, very well composed piece. There are 3 short movements. The first movement is a little over 4 minutes. The second movement is just a brief interlude. It's maybe 2.5 minutes. And the most substantial part is the last movement, which is very stormy and requires quite a lot of virtuosity and technical acuity to play. It's a hard piece. And I have a special connection to this piece because I learned it when I was really much too young to play such a hard piece, but I worked so hard on it that I was able to do it, and I first played it when I was 11 years old. So as you can imagine, I've been associated with this for a long time. And since this is the first kind of outing like this for me, I thought that I would play something that would go over well, and this always does.
I know there's some other musicians in the audience, including myself, that can relate to what you're saying. You know, working real hard and trying real hard on something,
right,
and being able to do it before you're necessarily ready to do it, which is something that I'm going to do tonight too. Now, I surely thank you for being here tonight, and why don't we hear you play? That'll be great. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Anthony Smetona. Something noteworthy, this piece has a much more dramatic effect, you know, with a general relative quiet, so I'm not asking everybody to shut up or anything, but you'll feel the song much more, coming from somebody that's performed it for 60 years now.